Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I am your host, Dr. Harbir Sian. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to join me here, guys. I know you have a million things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you take the time to listen or watch means so much to me. As always, I have a big request right off the top. If you get some value from this, and I know you will, please do share it. Put a link on LinkedIn, send something to your friend, text message, put a screenshot up on Instagram, tag us, let us know that you're listening and what you took away from this amazing conversation. Before we jump in, I want to say a big thank you to one of our partners, Figs Scrubs. I know you've seen Figs everywhere. You know, they're amazing. Their products are incredible. I want to thank them for their support. I'm actually wearing, if you're watching, I'm wearing a Figs On Shift fleece vest. And man, I'm going to tell you, this thing is, I could live in this thing right now during the winter time. It's so cozy. And underneath I have the Figs under scrubs. There's what are they called? Seamless, I think, under scrubs. Perfect for at work or under your comfy vest. But check them out. And if you're looking for your first set of Figs, you can use my code Harbir S First Figs. It's Harbir S First Figs is the code when you're checking out. But honestly, you don't need a code. The products are so good. Just go check them out. I've been really, really happy with all the scrubs and all the additional, like the fleece and the off shift, the sweats and everything. Really comfortable. Okay, back to our conversation. Returning guest, Mr. Tyler Kemp, who is a account manager at Marketing for ECPs, building strategies for optometry practices across North America. Tyler is a returning guest, as I said, and last year, the episode I did with Tyler was one of the top 10 episodes of 2025, just outside the top 5. I know I did a top 5 recap episode and all of that. Ty was probably like 6th or 7th or something on that list there, but top 10, amazing episode with so much really, really great information. I actually had people messaging me about, hey, that's really good information, good advice, good insight. I want to implement that into my practice. And on that same note, Ty's actually starting his own podcast called For the Record, the number 4, the record. And the number 4 is important because it's a Marketing for ECPs podcast. So please keep your eyes open and ears open for that podcast. Make sure you tune in to look for marketing advice from the man himself. Tyler, thanks for coming back on, man.
Thank you for the invite. I'm excited.
I always do these really long intros. In my mind, I'm like, oh, it's just going to be a couple of words. I got to quickly say this thing and I quickly say that thing. And next thing you know, it's like 3 minutes into the podcast and the guest hasn't said a word yet. So I feel bad.
Well, no, this is good because that actually reminds me of a Fig story here, because I think it's one of the coolest marketing ambitions I've seen it was actually from a dental practice a couple of years ago. So my wife is in healthcare. She's a nurse, and she saw a promotion that if for any nurses who want to come in as a new patient to their practice, they would have a full set of Figs waiting for them. And whoa. So what was really cool about it was not only did my wife have a great experience at the practice, but what they had done was they just put simply their logo on the side of the arm. And what was cool is they didn't put the text of their business. They just put their logo part on there. But my wife got to go back to work in a brand new black set of Figs with just a small gold logo from the company, from the practice on her arm. And as what happens when most people are wearing a new pair of Figs to work, people go, oh, nice new fit.
Totally.
And she said, yeah, I got them from my new dentist. And I just thought, I was blown away at the brilliance of that campaign, because if you want to talk about social proof, like that is someone wearing your brand around and all they've been is a patient for one time. I just thought it was a brilliant move, and
that's genius.
Tie into Figs.
That's really, really cool, man. Thank you for sharing that story, because now all of a sudden my wheels are turning. Like, how can we leverage this partnership? That's very cool. That's a bit of a big investment, because obviously Fig scrubs are not inexpensive. Sure. That's part of their brand, and that's fine. But I guess at the end of the day, is if that patient's going to be your patient for life, that lifetime value is huge, and it's way outweighs the $100 whatever that you might have spent on the scrubs to put your logo on there and all of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool. I might have to look at maybe implementing something like that at our office too.
Well, I think it jumps back to the type of patient that you want to see. Mm-hmm. because you
Absolutely.
know that if you're making that investment into that type of person, you're doing a few things. You're showing to your audience how much you care about first responders and people who are in the hospital, and putting themselves on the line for people's health and safety. And that's a great community involvement piece that you're doing at one point. But you also know that that might be the audience who really cares about quality things. If it's someone who cares about wearing figs to work, they're probably also the people who care about wearing the best frames to work. They're caring about the ones that they know they're going to be taking them on and off, and they're going to be sandy wiping them all the time, that they know, like, well, I better buy a good pair that's going to last. So if it were an optometry practice doing that, it's kind of like, well, you're talking to the right audience. You're getting brand loyalty from good people.
That's an excellent point. Excellent point. Because that's conversations that we have in the office all the time. And I talk to other ODs about, is like, how do you attract the right type of patient, right? We all have this sort of, and that's a big part of marketing. I'm sure we're going to, maybe part of that's going to be part of the conversation we're going to talk about today, but we did before, is like, you have to create this ideal, quote unquote, ideal patient in your mind of what does that person look like? What do they wear? Where do they shop? How do they talk? Who do they talk to? You know, all this kind of stuff. I know we did when we built our website. That was a big part of like how we had to kind of like imagine, and anytime you're doing any kind of marketing, is who are you trying to reach? So that's a really, really smart, I think, effort by that dental practice, because you're right. Figs being sort of this, what's the right word? I don't want to say luxury, but it's sort of that premium is probably the right word, premium brand in the scrubs, in the medical world. And if there are people who are wearing that or caring about that, they likely care about premium in other parts of their world as well. So interesting. Yeah. Very good. That's perfect. So perfect for this conversation, Tyler, because we're going to be talking about marketing. We're going to be talking about how do we attract the right kind of patients to our practice. When we had a lot of that kind of conversation last time, we talked about how to maximize our efforts on Google and SEO and all this kind of stuff. We're going to retouch on that. Last time we spoke, I wanted to make this like a quarterly thing. And I think, unfortunately, we're like almost at a year from that last episode. So maybe we'll try and maybe we won't be quite as ambitious this year. Maybe we'll try every 6 months. Maybe that we'll be able to pull that one together. So we do want to, it's really important to keep doing these updates because things are always changing. So like tomorrow, I won't say everything we talk about will be obsolete, but things might be a little bit different by tomorrow or next week. And with AI being more and more integrated in everything we're doing, things are changing so quickly. So why don't we dive into that, man? Let's talk about from last year to this year. What are some of the important updates you might want to share with us about marketing, digital marketing? Actually, all of marketing, not just digital, because I think there's some things we're going to talk about that are a little bit more maybe traditional as well.
Yeah. So this time last year, we were experiencing the biggest change in Google and usage of the internet since Google became a thing. And that was them implementing the Gemini tool, so their AI tool. And what that did was Google essentially put all websites and businesses on notice that they were only going to be valuing the best keywords and search terms. And for those who had ranked for a ton of keywords in the past and maybe driven a lot of traffic to their website through these keywords that weren't necessarily quality, but it was about quantity, a lot of websites saw a large decline in the amount of traffic that came through to their site, ultimately from the amount of keywords associated with them. Ultimately, I don't feel like that was a bad thing. I believe that there were a lot of keywords that were driving people through to websites that just weren't quality. So that was very well cleaned up. However, it did have a lot of impact on a lot of sites and a lot of businesses because suddenly that huge drop in traffic does ultimately result in lower appointments. It can result in lower sales. So it makes a massive impact. So last year was very much about weathering the storm of this is a massive update that we need to figure out how to adjust to this. And the biggest thing that for ECPs, we've been doing this for a long time, is really putting a big focus on hyper local content. So making sure that you're not just ranking for the most, but you're ranking for quality searches that people in your actual area are likely to be searching. That's always been a focus. And what we saw as a result of that was when all of these keywords started dropping off kind of in that December, January timeline, as soon as the end of April and beginning of May kind of started to come around, we saw a steady climb back up of keywords, because suddenly now Google is saying, hey, as we've gotten more specific for our users, we're recognizing the content that you've been creating and putting on your website for years has been more hyperlocal. So as we're trying to help people in Calgary, we're trying to help people in Surrey find what they're looking for. The websites that focused on really specific content for their users actually started to thrive again. And those who were focused on, let's put as many keywords on the website as possible and just drive traffic, and hopefully there's going to be some quality in there, those are the ones who just simply didn't recover. So now that we've gone through that, and kind of closer to the end of the summer, I think we started to see things even out a lot more in terms of the normal course of action we see with keywords going up as more blogs go out. What we're seeing now is there's a focus not just on how people are searching on Google, but how people are using the Google AI tools and other AI tools like ChatGPT. We're seeing a significantly increased amount of traffic coming from AI sources.
Yeah.
That just means that we need to be aware of how people are searching things differently between AI sources and between Google. Because I was actually having a chat about this morning, that if you consider the way that you're using ChatGPT, and I consider the way that I am, that when I go in there, I'm typing a paragraph in there. I'm treating ChatGPT like it's my helpful friend on the other side of the computer.
Yeah.
I'm still treating Google as basically my research tool. So
I want to use 5 words on like when I'm typing something in Google, it's like, what's the quickest 5 words I can use to get to describe what I want to describe?
Right, exactly. So if you're searching that differently in those two tools, but the usage of AI has gone up significantly, you can't just be writing blogs and making content updates on your website, on social media, all of that, just for Google searches anymore. You also have to consider, am I writing the content in my blogs that is going to be recognized through ChatGPT as answering these kind of more complex and long tail keywords and longer searches that people are putting in? So it's completely changed the way that we have to search this kind of, we have to create this kind of content, because the way people are searching has completely changed. That's been, it's been an enormous shift in website behavior and online behavior.
That it sounds exciting to me, but at the same time, when I feel like somebody on your side of that fence is like, holy cow, this is crazy. Like, how do I like keep up with this? But for me, it's like exciting. Like, it's like so many cool ways that we can find information. To be honest, I use ChatGPT a fair bit. And I see this now. A lot of people around me are using it quite a lot, quite regularly for pretty much day-to-day stuff, right? Like, as it says, like your personal assistant. I love the voice feature. So I don't know if it's only the pro version that lets you do that, or if any version lets you do it, but I have the pro version. And so I like to do the voice. Oh, my light just went bright. I think the AI's in my electricity here. It's I love using the voice function. So when you're using the voice function, it's even more elaborate in a way, right? So one thing is you're typing a long paragraph, but you're typing complete sentences. When I'm doing the voice, I'm like, so, okay, wait a minute. So I'm like, I was trying to find this thing online. It looks like this, but oh yeah, then I used it like this when I was at this place. And just the same way I would be talking to you, I'm talking to this voice assistant, and you talk for like 2 minutes, it registers everything. And then, the voice comes back, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it gives you like, it's awesome. I was researching, I was trying to find, we were watching football last weekend, and I was like, who did Trevor Lawrence play with in college? He had a couple of really great receivers. They won a national title. I think he played at Clemson. What year was that? And who were the receivers? And it came back with, oh yeah, that amazing trio of receivers of Jamar Chase and so on. And so I'm like, what? This is like, it's just talking back to you like a friend. So you're totally right. Like how you search on an AI assistant is very different than how you search on Google. As a separate note, I don't know if you have something in a comment here, or if this you feel like is related. I just saw something this morning about Apple is now going to use Gemini for Siri, I think coming this year. So that's going to be the AI engine behind Siri now is going to be Gemini. So I wonder if that somehow ties Apple closer to like Google searches as well, and how that might impact people, searching on Siri, like, hey, where's my nearest optometrist or whatever. So that's an interesting new thing.
Yeah, and we talk about, as we're talking here, I've said a few times, Google versus AI. Something that's important to remember is that AI is simply doing an amazing thing, that it is pulling all of the information that is available about this subject, and it is kind of helping summarize it for you. They're still pulling it from the sources online where that content was put there originally. So in order for AI, all the different tools, whether it's Gemini, whether it's ChatGPT, whatever you're using, it needs to pull it from somewhere. So the big focus on AI tools and AI search tools and AI assistants, all of that does not negate the importance of Google. In fact, it almost makes it more important. It just, you have to consider a little bit about the content that you're putting on there for it to pull. How can you make it as easy as possible for what Gemini and the other AI tools are looking for? Like, for instance, Google is putting an even bigger focus on their Google business profile. So where you have your hours, where you have basically your phone number, sometimes a booking link, and then you can also make posts in there as well. Optimizing your Google business profile is going to be significantly more important going forward, because something that we see as a trend for Google is they're starting to lean a little bit more into sentiment. As these AI tools are pulling information that they feel is going to be useful to their users, they're looking at where's the best place to pull actual people's opinions. Like, if someone says, what actually is the best optometrist near over me? Which place do people in my community like the most? They're going to be pulling information from Google reviews. If they're not already directly pulling that from there, I've actually seen a case where a AI tool has summarized the top comments and the bottom comments from Google reviews.
Right, I've seen that.
It's fascinating because it just means that the emphasis from within the practice of asking patients who have had a great experience if they would be willing to leave a review, that does help increase the amount of positive sentiment that's through there. But that's where it's getting more important, and that's where AI is kind of pulling a little bit more from.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I want to correct myself quickly, and I want to talk about Google reviews a little bit more, because I did a presentation on this recently at the Waterloo Eye Institute conference a couple months ago, and I talked a lot. It's crazy how Google reviews are never, like, they just don't go away. Like, it's like it's like just one of those pests. You think, oh, Google reviews are a thing of a past, but no, they're just always still at the top of the list of how important they are. I want to correct myself on the football thing. I was researching Joe Burrow, LSU teammates, and it was Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Okay, whoever is a football fanatic out there is going to be like, Trevor Lawrence, Jamar Chase, what are you talking about? Anyway, just wanted to make sure.
I thought you were just trying to put the dig in on me because I'm a Jags fan, that I had to watch them lose.
Oh, I'm sad. I'm sorry about that. I got to be honest with you. That sucks. You are a Jags fan. That's cool that you're a Jags fan. They look good this year, and that's too bad. I picked them to win that game, so I was a little disappointed about that. That one, man, they had the drive right in front of them, that interception. Anyways, they're going to go down a rabbit hole here, and some people are going to tune out. So we're not going to talk about football. All right, but Google reviews. I did this thing where I was preparing for this lecture, and I recorded a video of myself searching stuff online, like a screen capture of myself searching. And I think I was searching like optometrist in Surrey or something or other along those lines, because I was trying to find my clinic and where it showed up. And then, Gemini, that assistant, shows up at the top like you're referring to. And if you click that, or if you click AI mode or something, I think it is, if you click AI mode, it summarizes a whole bunch of stuff for you. And it does that. It gives, here's the top reviews, here's the bottom reviews, here's the overall sentiment. Like, it gives all of that. So it's very, very important to really keep pushing for those Google reviews. And this, in the last 6 months, we really made a big push for Google reviews in one of our offices, where I felt like we were underperforming in that. And we really like, we like doubled our reviews in the last 6 months. And wow. I put like incentives around it for the staff, not monetary, but more like experiential. Like I'll buy you lunch, I'll take you out to dinner, I'll do this. Like, and I put just, if we get to 150 reviews, if we get to 200 reviews, I put all these little incentives around it, and man, they ate that up. And we were on fire now with the Google reviews. It's been great. So, and just to kind of share with what we're doing, it's nothing new. It's just the consistency, asking as many times as you can in person, over the phone. And then at the end of the day, we send either a text message or an email to every full eye exam that we had that day. We send it to a patient and they get that text on their phone. And then, it's a numbers game. Maybe half of them, maybe a quarter of them will leave a review. But if you ask everybody, it adds up.
Absolutely.
So talking about all these things, what moving forward now, we're starting just at the beginning of the year. We've set our budgets, hopefully, about like how much money can we spend on marketing and so on. What do you think is the best use of marketing dollars in 2026?
So this is probably the hardest pill to swallow for people who have just got into their marketing or for a new business that needs to get butts in seats. But awareness is so underutilized compared to lead generation. And what I mean by that is we are always talking at 4ECPs in terms of the marketing funnel. Everything we do is where is your biggest opportunity to bring in more patients? Where do your current patients sit at the moment? And how can we move them from the stage of awareness that they either don't know about you or they've kind of heard about you to the place where they're doing a little bit more research, they're interested in you, and then they're taking action and making a decision. So either coming in to purchase frames or they're booking an appointment. The crazy thing is that such a small percentage of your potential audience or even your current patients sit within the decision and action stage. You need to fill the top of the funnel so that you stay top of mind to your current patients, because you better believe that if you're not staying top of mind, one of your competitors is trying to swoop in there to say, hey, why not try a different experience? Mm-hmm. And for those who haven't heard of you yet, we talked about it on the last podcast. We joke about it on Instagram in the comments. My phrase that I'm trying to coin: people choose who they trust and they trust who they know. Mm-hmm. No one is going to just go to a website for a practice they have never heard of and just look that up. Mm-hmm. You do need a sense of familiarity to want to make as big of a decision as taking yourself or your family to get your eyes checked. It's a big choice. You have to choose someone that you feel comfortable with. And it's the same reason why brands like Nike and Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they are still doing branding. They don't put out commercials because they think someone is going to see that commercial, instantaneously drive to the store and pick it up. That's not lead generation, it's branding. And they know that if they can stay in front of you more frequently than their competitor, when you do crave cola, you're going to choose Coca-Cola. When you do need more running shoes, you're going to choose Nike over Under Armour because you see it far more frequently. And it just goes back to the importance of that branding and awareness and really just focusing on that top of the funnel, because anywhere from 60 to 80% of your potential audience is sitting in that stage where they don't know you yet. And if you want to get them to a stage where you can say, hey, we're having a sale on sunglasses coming up this weekend, we want you to come here. If they've never heard of you before, why are they going to stop what they're doing to come to you versus either their current practice or one that they've been seeing or hearing radio ads or seeing on Facebook or seeing on billboards? That's how you create this kind of brand association. And jumping back to what we talked about with figs at the very beginning, there is that level of premium that you start to associate with that. Well, that's not just out of thin air. They know that they align with people like you. They align with they put themselves in the stores where you need to drive to those stores to pick up that specific one, or you need to order it online and go through this and become a member in specific. It's part of the more that you hear about that, and the more that they brand themselves as this premium outlet. I know that they have great quality product, but it's at the same time, it's how you present yourself and brand yourself and create that awareness with people who haven't heard of you yet.
So so in this case, if we're talking about where we want to put our dollars, you feel like trying to build more awareness, reach people who don't know you yet, and create that connection, is that maybe more important than, I guess this is a tough question, but like more important than trying to stay consistently in touch with your existing patient base? Is there like, would you put one over the other? So like, for example, newsletters and email newsletters and all this, staying constantly in touch with my current patient base versus trying to reach out to new people. Which one would you say is more important, if you could?
I would focus on your patients first. I think it still aligns that getting a new patient is always going to be more work and be more expensive than retaining a current patient. So sure. I do believe staying in touch with your patients, whether that is you're posting consistently on social media or you're sending them emails about either information, new things you're doing, new offers, all of that, that's extremely important because you don't want to lose them. However, it comes down to the question of, if your goal is to grow this year, if your goal is to grow by 10%, the reality is the approximate attrition rate in the industry as of last year was about 10%, maybe even higher in a lot of cases. So if you're just focused on your current patient base and you want to grow by 10%, if the attrition rate is 10%, that ultimately means that you're going to need to grow by 20% next year to see that 10% growth in your business.
You mean 20% new patients?
Yeah. So it can't be all focused on one. You can do an amazing job of taking care of your patients and focusing on that retention that way, whether that be through email marketing, whether that just be through the experience that they get within the practice. But if you are only focusing on the current patient base, it is going to be very hard to see increase in revenue. You might have the chance to increase the revenue per patient. That's huge. The more care that you put into your patients, the more likely they are to spend more with you and buy their frames from you and contact lenses and all that. Mm-hmm. But we can't forget and get too focused in on ourselves that we can't forget that there is a massive percentage of that potential audience that doesn't know about you yet. Mm-hmm. And that opportunity is sitting there. And those practices who grow exponentially are the ones going, I'm going to try and talk to this audience who is not being spoken to right now. So it is a balance, and it can't just be focusing on new. It can't just be focusing on current. I do believe it needs to be a healthy balance and kind of approach the full funnel.
Right. Obviously that makes sense. It certainly can't be all one or the other. Now, the thing I find tricky about that, like building this awareness, you mentioned Coca-Cola. It's very interesting you mentioned that, because I've had these thoughts over the years, like, why does Coca-Cola still pay for advertisement on TV? Like, they're one of the most, if not the most iconic brand across the entire world. Everybody knows Coca-Cola. I don't need Coke to tell me that I should drink a Coke but I get it. It's branding, it's awareness, it's just staying top of mind for everybody, just reminding everyone that, we're still the biggest. But they have millions and billions of dollars to put into marketing. How does an independent practice compete in this sea of marketing and people trying to get in front of other, patients? And how can we as an independent compete in that awareness game? So me staying in touch with my patients, that's easy. Like you said, they're already my patients. I already have their emails. I just need to put the effort into to roll out those emails or whatever it is. But to get in touch with the new people seems kind of daunting. I'm like, it's like stepping onto an ocean, with a paddle. I just don't know how I'm going to kind of navigate this.
It's not easy, but it is simple in the sense that there are tools specifically designed to help reach people in the different parts of the funnel. So when we're talking about awareness, I am talking about Meta ads, so Facebook and Instagram. I'm talking about YouTube ads, so those ones that you would click to skip if you didn't want to see the details there, the ones that show up in the middle of the video. And I'm also talking about Google Display. So that's where things get a little bit complicated if you're not super familiar with it. You can use Google for different purposes.
Yeah.
Google Display ads are meant to show your audience your brand in places where they already are, that isn't necessarily trying to target them to make a decision now, but you're showing up more frequently so that your brand shows up more frequently. There is also Google search ads, which is, you might hear the term PPC or pay per click. Yep. Those ones are meant to capture people ready to make a decision now. The reason I say that it's not easy, but it's simple, is that choosing the right ads for what you're trying to do is incredibly important for it to work. So if you are trying to get people to book tomorrow and you choose to advertise on a Facebook and Instagram ad that is talking about your brand, consider where those people are and what they're doing when they're on Facebook. It's probably the end of their day. They're looking for that escape time. They're looking to kind of just scroll through. If you show up as your brand through there, they might not make the decision now, but 2 days later, when they go, oh, I've been putting this off for too long, you have a much higher opportunity to have shown up earlier in their process. Or they might have even clicked on you at that time, taken a look and gone, okay, maybe I'll check that out when I book later this week. That's how you need to show up. You need to show up in the place where you feel the audience in what stage of their buying journey they're going to be at. So it is not, you do need to choose the right avenues for which message. When you're building those, it's not necessarily as break the bank as you might think it is. I believe that there are a lot of misconceptions that you need to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars a month on media spend in order to make the right impact. Mm-hmm. What Google and Facebook or Meta have done really, really well is they've collected enough information that if you can set up these ads very specifically to the exact type of audience you want to be reaching, you can make a pretty large impact to a small group of people who are going to bring a lot of value to your business as patients. There are ways to get into this that is not as scary as having to put thousands of dollars down a month in order to try this out. There's always improvements. There's always more you can do. And obviously, the more that you invest into something, the more opportunity you'll have. But it's not necessarily as daunting as a lot of people might think it is.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that would be what's required to compete in that space, is that I have to put thousands and thousands monthly down. And it, of course, that could seem a little scary, but if there's more cost-effective ways to approach it that we can see a return, I think that would be at least create this sort of positive feedback for the business owner who's trying to get, acquire new patients through this process. So that's interesting. So I think, of course, at the end of the day, we need support in that. That's something that's going to be a little hard for, unless you happen to have, I know some of our colleagues either themselves have some really advanced background in this, or they have somebody who works in their business who has some background in marketing and digital advertising and stuff like that. Unless you have that specifically, you need to work with somebody who's going to help you with this for sure. It's going to be a little too much for any one of us to do it ourselves. So that's great. Tyler, any other words of wisdom you want to share before we wrap up? What should we be really thinking about in 2026 when it comes to digital advertising and marketing?
So you brought this up right at the beginning, that it wasn't going to be just a chat around digital marketing, but marketing in general. And that, I think, is one of the biggest opportunities this year. So that's something that we as an agency actually really took notice of at the beginning of last year and said, there's kind of a gap in the market right now for practices who are utilizing traditional media in terms of print advertising. And it's funny because you'd think that's a digital marketing agency. Why are we talking about postcards and mailers again? But the reality is, the amount of mail that people are getting in terms of that promotional side of things, it's gone significantly down in the last few years. As as marketing has become so online, it's almost become a little overwhelming for people with all of the ads that they see on their Facebook, on their Instagram, Google, etc. When you have the opportunity to pair a digital ad with a piece of direct mail and have the same kind of campaign running at that time, that someone sees it when it lands on their counter at home, and then they go to scroll on their phone and they see the same ad, that's a level of reaching that patient in so many different facets of their life that not a lot of people are taking advantage of right now. And it's really a way to make yourself stand out, that kind of net, like we see all of the fast food, we see all of the fast food junk mail coupons come in the mail all the time, which is great. But something that we don't consider, and I do this all the time, I probably end up using 5% of those that come in. But whenever I see them, I go, oh, well, that's valuable. I'm going to keep that around a little bit. And all of a sudden, that advertisement for McDonald's sits on my counter for a couple of weeks before I finally go, I passed the time where it was valid.
Yeah. That's my wife. I just toss them out, but my wife definitely keeps them around. They're always sitting there on the counter.
Right. So if we're talking about that long-term brand impact and how we stick in people's mind longer, if you're sitting with that pile for 17 days is actually the average that a piece of direct mail sits in someone's home. So think of how many times you would have to scroll across a social media ad for your business, for a business, to have the same impact as walking past that piece of direct mail over a course of 2 weeks. And then imagine that you pull up your phone and you see the same ad there. There's a sense of familiarity because you've been walking past it sitting on the counter for that long.
Right.
So I think those are going to be the biggest things going into 2026 here is, how do we focus on quality? So how do we make sure that we're focusing on where people are searching differently this year, that they're using AI tools a lot more, they're using chatbots a lot more, but also how can you make yourself stand out in a way that your competitors aren't? Well, maybe you can show up with the same message in multiple places and something that's going to stick in your patient's mind longer, so that you have that sense of gaining that familiarity and gaining that sense of trust, and people choose who they trust.
Yeah, I like that. That's interesting. I always feel like everything's just there's always a bit of a pendulum, right? So we went so far over to heavy into digital because the opportunity was there. Then it becomes sort of saturated and difficult. So then we keep doing it because it's important and it still has a place. But then we see the pendulum come back a little bit. Now all of a sudden we're going back to mail outs and a bit more traditional approaches to marketing. But again, to your point about, when we're talking about retaining patients versus acquiring new patients, it's always going to be a bit of both. And I think in this case, having a combined strategy makes a lot of sense. And that's something that we certainly are going to be exploring as well. I want to target those that demographic that we really want coming into our business. So we're going to try this sort of combined approach to bringing in the right type of people. So that's really cool. I like that. And yeah, again, I'm the type of person who throws junk mail out immediately. It comes in the front door, out the back door. But my wife keeps stuff around. So I imagine in every household, there's that two types of people. And so there's going to be one person at least that's going to hang on to a few things. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that insight. And I want to encourage everybody. I personally feel like this can be overwhelming. I know there's a lot of opportunities to reach people, and it's sort of this what's the right word? The paradox of choice, or this analysis paralysis, whatever we have. When there's too many options, we get frozen and stuck and we say, forget it. But I think the important thing is find the partner that works for you, works with you, and helps you kind of sort through what's going to make the most sense for your practice. And if you start small, start where it makes sense for you, and then kind of grow from there. There's so much opportunity for us to either stay in touch with our current patients or reach out to new patients, so we can keep building our practices. So definitely make sure you're looking for that opportunity. All right, Ty, thanks, man. Anything else? We're keeping it kind of short and sweet here today, but I think there was a lot of value for anybody who's listening. And listen, go back and find Tyler's episode that we did last year I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you which episode it was exactly, but just scroll back in whatever app you're using and it'll be easy to find, or on YouTube. And listen to that one, because this episode, this conversation actually builds off of that one. So I think there's a lot of value to going back and listening to that one and then listening to this one, because this will kind of be like part 2 of it. Essentially, we didn't repeat a lot of stuff from that episode. We kind of added a lot of new stuff in this one. So a lot of foundational stuff in the previous one and stuff on this one that we built on. Tyler, anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
No, sir. I think we should save it for the next quarterly update, because there will be happen.
There's always new stuff happening. I try my best to at least read the headlines. I'm a bit of a headline reader when it comes to this stuff, but at least read the headlines. Like this Apple thing with Gemini, like I said, kind of came across my phone this morning. I didn't read the whole article. I just know that now Apple's going to use Gemini. I don't know what the consequences of that will be, but at least like I try to stay on top of it. But even for me in that sense, it's a lot, right? So having these conversations is really going to be helpful moving forward. So thank you again, Tyler. Everybody, connect with Tyler online. Tyler, where can people find you online?
Yeah, they can check us out at marketingforecps.com. I think that's the best place to start. And we will have lots of podcasts and more information like this, where we dive specifically into different parts of marketing there. So lots of resources. And I'm on Instagram posting as much as I can there. It's a busy time of year for optometrists, so that means it's a busy time of year for me. But you can find me at Ty Talks Marketing on Instagram.
Awesome. Go give Tyler a follow, please, at Ty Talks Marketing, and share some love there. And thanks again, Tyler.
Thank you
for all the help, man. And offline as well, I'm always in touch with Tyler. I got to say, probably weekly. We kind of text or email back and forth, right? We're in touch fairly regularly, so I appreciate all the help. And one more time, big shout out to Figs Scrubs. Thanks for all the support. If you are watching, if you haven't watched yet, just quickly go look at this super comfy vest. Okay, this is the on-shift fleece vest that I'm wearing. I can't remember the color, walnut maybe, something like that. It's sort of this dark maroony kind of color. Super, super comfy. If you're looking to get yourself a set of Figs or any product like a vest or sweats or whatever, shoes, use Harbir S First Figs at checkout, and then let me know how much you loved it, because I guarantee you will. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Tyler. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching to the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. We'll see you guys in the next episode.